This is the video for the Chapter 2.1 homework, problems 18, the written homework problems 18 and problems 32. So let's go ahead and take a look at this real quick. Problem 18 sets up a situation. You're getting a table of values, the data that's been collected, U.S. Census Bureau, and now it has been summarized in these tables, and it has to do with educational attainment in the year 2013. And so these values are represented in millions, and so instead of writing all the zeros, they just use the kind of the leading part of those values there. And so what we have here is the questions of construct a relative frequency distribution for males. And again, so looking at the solution over here, you can see the first thing that comes up here is to get these values here. Where do these values come from? Not a high school graduate. Where does 0.124 come from? You can see from these values right there, it comes from 12.3 divided by 99.4. And again, this total here, from here, this is where you will get 99.4. And then if you sum this up here for females, it's 107.6. And so that's where those values come from as we look at the solution to those. To zoom in a little bit more here. As we look into the solutions here, this is where these values come from. And relative frequency has to do with the decimal version. If you're going to convert it to a percent, then you would multiply this by 100. And we would say 12.4% of males are not high school graduates. And the same thing, 11.3%. Females. And again, to get these numbers, something like an advanced degree, which is a master's or PhD or other types of doctorates, since there's more than PhDs, to get this 0.12, of course, what you would get here, just to show you one more example, you do 11.9 divided by 99.4, and if you did that, then this is what would give you 0.120. That's how you get these values. So this is a relative frequency distribution for the males and females. Now, if you're going to construct a bar graph of that, that's what that would look like right here. And then you can see what's on the side here. I'll zoom in a little bit there. If you see what's on the side here, you can see right here the values are decimal values, and then you would have a bar graph there. And side by side, so you could compare them versus two separate bar graphs. Moving on here, compare each gender's educational attainment, make a conjecture, right? A guess, kind of an estimated guess, not just a guess, about the reasons for those differences. And again, this is what the books answer. I may argue that there's actually no difference, even though the bars are different values, because the values are in the millions. I might say that, actually, I would say there is no difference between them. That could be an argument. I would say the biggest difference happens here. And so there could be some arguments in associate's degrees that more women get it because maybe they're having children or they're stay at home more, or they feel like they need to stay home, so they only get 2-year degrees versus continuing on. That could be some reason. But again, that's what statistics is about, is kind of that interpretation. But there's what the bar graphs would look like. And then answering why there's a differences. I might say there's no difference, but again, we can see in the bars that there's a little bit differences. But this, to me, was the biggest one for me. And again, I'm just conjecturing why. You would have your own conjecture. On 32, there's a question of describe the circumstances in which a bar graph is preferable to a pie chart. And so on that situation, we have kind of this answer here. Bar graph is preferred when trying to compare two specific values, kind of like this when we're trying to find out which one is more. Versus a pie chart is when you're kind of using, when you're comparing here, it's important to highlight this idea of parts to whole, right? When you're looking at the whole thing and then who has more, and we're looking at an individual, males or females, we can then look at with a bigger piece of the pie, parts to whole, versus here you're comparing two different parts against each other. In a pie chart, you're doing parts to whole. Bar graph, to me, bar chart, you're comparing part to part, the part of the males to this part of the females. So again, and an important thing here is a pie chart cannot be drawn if the data do not include all possible values. So because you need the whole, you need all the values of the variable. And so that's what we're talking about. That's it for chapter 1.1. I mean, sorry, 2.1.